What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into another episode, the fourth consecutive episode of the CTW Podcast. I am your host, Rob Tayan. Joined with me is my co-host, Ian Angelo, and my other co-host, who's a new face in town. You guys got to know and meet Randy a couple episodes back, and tonight we have another man who is joining the crew, Brendon Cox. Brendon, how we doing? Welcome into the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm so excited to be on board this year. It's going to be an exciting year, so I can't wait and see what's going on. So I'm ready for it.
Going to be a great year. And I'll tell you what, that year officially started today, guys. Celtics Media Day. Ian, I see you got a smile on your face. You're excited to be back talking about the Celtics, watching the Celtics. Just the whole vibe today was great. And I can't wait to get started in talking about it. However, guys, before I get started, I got a couple of things I want to say. If you're not following us on social media, go do that right now. All of our links will be in the description down below, guys. And we got some big announcement for you guys. Are you ready to score some amazing tickets? Well, get in the game with SeatGeek. Whether it's basketball, concerts, or your favorite event, SeatGeek has you covered, guys. SeatGeek has this amazing ticketing scheme that shows you whether a ticket is worth the value or not worth the value. You can see the view from the seat. Green means it's good and worth the price. Red means it's not so good and maybe you should avoid that. Guys, at checkout, use code Celtics Weekly for $20 off your first purchase. The link will be in the description. We're very excited to be partnered with SeatGeek. Guys, let's get started. Like I said, it was media day today. We have a lot to cover, a lot of different people who we can talk about. Kristaps, Tatum, I mean, really the whole crew. Um, no around the hardwood today. We're talking strictly C's, guys. To get things started off, I would like to talk about the man himself, Kristaps Porzingis. Now, guys, Kristaps dropped some pretty big news for Celtics fans. Now, I wasn't too surprised with this news. I doubt either or you two were surprised with this news. However, Kristaps Porzingis, in an interview with ESPN today, said that he is aiming and expected to make a return by December. He is feeling good. He is getting back into action, guys. Now, KP did also say that he would like to get into action sooner. However, they will see how it's going, guys. How confident are you guys in the Boston Celtics and Kristaps Porzingis that he'll be able to make it back to that December return point?
Now, I don't know. I mean, knowing the Celtics in like injuries past, you would think like, oh, it's really not going to be that soon. But with the way that Kristaps Porzingis is talking, I mean, he has me hyped. He has me convinced that he can be back by December. The way that he's talking about it, I remember he was talking with the NBC Sports Boston crew saying that I don't know, he's feeling good and that he's starting to do one-on-ones right now. So honestly, I'm pretty excited for Kristaps Porzingis to return, and if we get him back by December, that's going to be pretty huge for this team.
Yeah, I definitely think that too. Obviously, after the parade, he had that off-season surgery, and he was at home resting for a couple of weeks. But then we saw on social media, right? He went to work, right? He went to all those workouts, recovery and all that stuff too. And we know, like he said back in like the finals too, he's like he would die out there, right? So he just wants to play on this team every single game, every single night too. But obviously, nothing wants to be rushed, nothing wants to be forced. It's just like, it just these take time no matter the circumstances. So it's definitely just something that we gotta be patient for. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I mean, he's obviously he wants to play sooner than we think, so we just gotta wait and see. But I think we will see him soon. So I'm excited for that.
I can't wait to see Kristaps back on the court. Ian, I remember you said it. I want to say it was two or three episodes ago. How Kristaps is like the ultimate luxury, where this team we've seen now can operate at a very high level without Kristaps. But when he's playing, it's like, all right, how do you really beat these guys? Because he brings like such this dynamic and unusual presence to the offensive and defensive floor that it's like, gosh, it's just from a fan perspective, it's just so fun to watch when Kristaps out there. It feels like the team is just so much more enjoyable and so much more entertaining. Um, I guess from a analytic standpoint, I would say don't rush him back as soon. Really, I'd rather him take a month later than he needs to than a month sooner than he needs to, because quite frankly, with a player like Kristaps, if he is healthy and he's in the rotation for the playoffs, I don't see a team beating these guys, despite, like, again, really despite injury. So, in terms of my confidence, I am pretty confident. However, again, take it slow, and don't rush anything. Now, in terms of confidence, guys, we saw some other big men, Celtics big men, at media day today. Neemias Queta, who got that contract with the C's extended, along with Luke Cornett and Xavier Tillman, guys. Now, last year, the Celtics big man entering the year was, for us here at Celtics Talk Weekly, a topic of conversation. We did not really have much faith in them. We didn't have much trust in them, guys. A year later, from a year removed, I guess, from that whole debacle with the big man depth. How do you guys feel entering the regular season about the Celtics big man depth without Kristaps in the rotation?
Well, last year they didn't win a championship. This year
Right.
they won a championship and they're pretty much running back the same exact team. So honestly, I mean, this is probably the best case scenario now is your big man depth because, obviously we know Kristaps isn't going to play, but we've seen guys like Cornette, we've seen Xavier Tillman, and we've seen Neemias Queta be able to dominate in certain situations. So they're all going to get a chance to play, and obviously Al Horford's going to be there too. But honestly, the big man depth is not as dire as it was last year. Granted, we didn't have Tillman last year, so it was pretty much just Luke Cornett and and
Right.
Queta. So we were kind of searching for somebody there, but I don't know. I'm excited for this big man depth now because I think they're all a lot better than they were last year, and I think going into this year after winning the championship, they're just going to have the most confidence in themselves.
I like what Ian said too. I think it definitely everyone will get a chance that we have for the big men depth too. I mean, I think the rotations like for the 5 spot will definitely they'll change a lot from the course until KP comes back. But I'm definitely interested to see because Al Horford obviously isn't going to be playing, probably going to be like restricted to not like back-to-back games, but that could give a chance for like Neemias Queta to step up, like Cornette, even Xavier Tillman maybe could fill the 5 spot if he wanted to. So I definitely am excited to see where that goes to and who will step up in that spot. Well, KP's out until December, so it's going to be interesting.
I will say, I think the big men depth was our worst take of the entire year. Maybe the Joe Mazzulla take was pretty bad, but they both proved me wrong. I was concerned about the Celtics big man depth last year, and quite frankly, it was probably the strongest unit we had. It was much deeper and more productive than the wings outside of Brown and Tatum, and then it was much more productive than the guards depth outside of Pritchard, right, or outside of Holiday and White. I have no worries that Cornette and Tillman and Queta and Horford can hold down the fort until Porzingis is back. And honestly, I think it's a good thing. It gives these guys more runs, especially with a guy like Tillman and Queta, who, are still unfamiliar with this team and what their role is and finding a rhythm. I think that's going to be huge for those two in particular, because I think when you look at those two guys, right, they're kind of the two biggest question marks in that big man depth, right, guys?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's going to be huge. I mean, you can argue Cornette, but I feel like we know a little more about what Cornette does,
Right.
at least what he does well. Um, but yeah, I think it will be interesting. I think Tillman will definitely have like a pretty solid season this year. I'm personally pretty high on him. I think he is going to be unironically the X factor of this team because we know Al Horford's not going to play every single game, and Luke Cornett's not going to be great in every situation. But I feel like if you throw Xavier Tillman out there, he's going to defend. It doesn't matter. You might not get as much from the offensive end, but you will be getting a lot from him defensively.
Right.
And that's going to be the most important thing when it comes to Xavier Tillman getting minutes this year.
I see a lot of aggression in Xavier Tillman. Also, I just think that when we watched him play those 2 road games in Dallas in the finals, that I feel like he can bring a lot to the table. So I think that his best basketball with our team hasn't been played just yet. So I'm excited to see if it'll continue, and I think it will. So I think he can definitely help fill that spot.
I am very excited for Tillman. I think that you're going to see a new player, just like you saw with Derek White. I don't know if obviously not to the level that Derek White took it. I don't think anyone was expecting Derek White to take it to the level that he has. But I don't know, man. For a player like Tillman, who was in one location, similar to White for his entire career, um, to get moved, mid season at the deadline to a team where you're not competing, and then you go to a team that is competing, that has a set rotation, that has a goal, that right. It's just it's kind of an on the fly. You have to play just these random 41 games of basketball. And I don't think Tillman was necessarily settled in, and you're living out of a hotel, and you don't have your spot. You don't know what local restaurants you eat at, and your kids are still trying to there's so much that you've got juggling and going on with the move itself in your own personal life. And you got to juggle the whole basketball scene. So, I do think it's really tough to get traded mid-season and to figure it out on the fly. So I'm very excited for Tillman. His production in Minnesota or in Memphis, excuse me, was starter caliber. That's he was starting for that Memphis Grizzlies team against the Los Angeles Lakers just 2 years ago in the playoffs. So there is, I think, a route for Tillman to take here to get big time minutes for this team, especially with Kristaps out of the lineup. So it'll be exciting to see how Kristaps progresses with his recovery, and alongside that it'll be interesting to see how those big men step up in Porzingis' absence, guys. Now, next up, I want to talk about is Jason Tatum, because he made some comments today that for Celtics fans were rather exciting. Now, the first one he said, in quotes, "I feel like you haven't seen the best Jason Tatum yet." Guys, my question to you, right? What does the best version of Jason Tatum exactly look like?
Obviously, I mean, it's a Jason Tatum that is not only elite on the defensive end that he has been able to show over the course of his career, but also elite offensively consistently. Like, if he can be consistent in and out, and we've mentioned this before, where Jason Tatum can go on like a month stretch where he's like the best player in the NBA, but then also have like a 2 to 3 week stretch where he's one of the worst players in the NBA on offense. Like, his shot does not fall consistently, and if he can hit his shot consistently this season, I think that is the best version of Jason Tatum. And granted, it's not even his scoring if he's facilitating at a high level. If he's basically doing everything that he does now at a higher level than he already is, I think you're probably seeing the best version of Jason Tatum out there. And I mean, you're probably seeing the MVP of the league.
I was going to say the same thing almost like, I think we can all grade consistency that he can lack from time to time. We all know that he tends to go on those cold streaks when, from time to time, like when shooting the three or just not having a good like scoring night altogether around. But I think that's still something that he can improve on. A thing that I think that he can be improving on more is being more vocal, because he's the best player on this team. He's a top five, NBA superstar. And so I think that the Celtics need more of a leader. So I think that he can make this his role, because I think that's what, a top five NBA player needs to do is, be that leader and step up and, get the team going.
I think the best version of Jason Tatum is when Jason Tatum is building from the inside out, not outside in. A lot of times this year, guys, if you can remember, Tatum started off the game on fire from behind the arc, right? 20 points in the first half, and then you'll check the box score and he finished with 26. And I think it's because, obviously we talked about this in a podcast, last week, I want to say, but he's put on weight. He's gotten bigger, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. Is his shooting form is something that he worked on this summer. But, when you're Tatum and you're putting on weight and you're getting bigger, your shot's going to take a little back seat. And I think, while it is important, yes, to keep working on that, I think it's also important to get going first. You draw a couple fouls, get a couple easy buckets in the paint, get a couple, easy pull-up mid-ranges down, before you start getting and implementing that shot from behind the arc. Obviously, the game's changing, right? And obviously, there are more threes being taken. So, adapt to the game. But I think, the best version of Jason Tatum is obviously a combination of what you guys said. But for me, it's like, I want to see JT start from the paint and go outwards, right? 40% of his threes. I'm gonna be a broken record about this now that I found that stat. 40% of his shots all year long were coming from behind the arc. Drop that down just 10%. Give me 30% of your shots coming from behind the arc, and I think you'll see an extra 6 or 7 points per game on his score sheet, up from last year at 26. I think you could see it go up to 31 easily, and I think you'll see his field goal percentage and efficiency skyrocket as well.
Yeah, I agree. And, that's another thing that we saw in the NBA Finals where his shot wasn't falling, but he was still able to impact the game on offense when it came to attacking the paint, drive and kick. That's pretty much what you want to see out of Jason Tatum over the course of a full season. And hopefully that also means that his jump shot is fixed as well, so he can have both of them, at peak performance where their defense just has no idea. There is no way to stop him.
Now, something here I mentioned is his shooting form. Right now, JT said that him and his trainer worked, a lot this offseason with simple things that he could fix. That he wasn't doing in the playoffs, right? Is his shoulders, his feet being squared, his hand getting under the ball, simple things like that that JT really wasn't doing in the postseason that he's been working on. So, guys, again, when you're talking a little bit more about Jason Tatum's shot and his form and all of this stuff, at what point, if this doesn't work in your Jason Tatum, do you kind of have to ditch not the three ball, but at what point, because it was bad in the postseason, 28% from three is at the volume in which he was shooting them is about 10 percentage points of where you want Jason Tatum to be, at least 6 or 7. So, how long do you give it before you kind of give up? I don't want to say give up, but kind of ditch Jason Tatum's three ball.
I don't think you do. I honestly don't think you do. I think even if it's not falling, you still have to shoot it. Just with the way that the NBA is going today, maybe his shots won't consist of mostly the three ball, but honestly, I don't think with the way that the NBA is today, he can afford to not use it at all. So if I'm Jason Tatum, like, yeah, if the shot's not falling, like, it's gonna suck, but you still have to shoot the three from time to time just to keep the defense honest.
That's what he's been known for too. I mean, obviously he's a big 3-point shooter. He takes a lot of them, so it's just like, this is what he's known to do. And so obviously, we obviously it's just something that obviously I just feel like it's just something that we can't fix, but he can. But I mean, it's just if they're not following, they're not following. I don't really know. I don't think we can fix it.
I feel like for me, I shouldn't say ditch the 3-point shot in totality, because Ian, you're so right. Like, the game's evolved, you can't. But I think it'd be like the off the dribble threes that he can ditch, the step backs, the side steps. I think Tatum is a phenomenal, and I should have found this before the podcast started. It was lazy of me that I didn't. I would love to know what his catch and shoot 3-point percentage is, because I feel like when Tatum is catching the ball from a paint touch or a swing, he is a very efficient shooter. You still don't want to leave. It's not like Giannis. You're not dealing with a Giannis situation, right? Where you're content with leaving Jason Tatum open. That's not the case. I think a lot of what Jason Tatum's downfall in terms of efficiency is his volume of these side steps, step back, off the dribble, shots that just, like, I think at some point, if it's not working this year, you are going to have to lean away from it, because it's just not an efficient shot. And I think when teams are playing the Celtics and Jason Tatum, what they're thinking is, okay, tonight we're going to make Jason Tatum take these tough off the dribble threes, because he does not shoot them efficiently. So I guess that's more so of where I was thinking, is those off the dribble shots.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that is not a very efficient shot that he does like to take a lot.
Right.
But I don't know. Well, I guess we'll just have to see from his jump shot this season. I've seen, videos and articles of his shot, and it's not necessarily changed that much. It's just, I don't know, maybe it is just the muscle that he's put on, which is weighing down the shot itself, and it's just not falling at the way that it used to. But
Right.
honestly, I'd much rather have the version of Jason Tatum that isn't the greatest shooter in the world, but is still like super muscular and able to be physical in the paint than have the guy like he was his rookie year, where yeah, he shot like 42% from three his rookie year, but he was also like super skinny and couldn't do anything else at a very elite level. So
it is a trade-off. And, you talk about trade-offs, you think about his running mate, Jaylen Brown, guys. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what JB said, but first, I'm interested to hear. JB entered, and I feel like he enters training camp every year almost kind of with a new look. He's kind of like, he's slept on with showing up to training camp with a fresh look. He shaved the beard. He cut the beard off, and this is the first time in his career we've seen JB without the beard. What do you? And I know I have to talk about it. What are you guys thinking about beardless JB?
not a fan. Not a fan. I'm sorry. I'm not. I know. It'll grow back, but like it looks so weird. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, whoa! I didn't expect that. But
Yeah, it was just interesting to see like a change in that, because obviously he wasn't trying to do anything extreme like Jimmy Butler does every year for media day, but obviously this is just something different. So it's just it caught me off guard, but obviously it's just people change their appearance all the time. So
Yeah, it's something I have to get used to. JB with no beard. I feel like part of who he was that beard. But let's hop into some actual stuff with Jaylen Brown. Now, obviously, we saw Jaylen Brown being asked about the Olympics. He kind of said that he was more vocal about it. Because Tatum was when he was asked about the Olympics, he kind of misdirected the question and was like, I don't know what happened. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm not necessarily saying that's what's driving me or that's what's my motivation this year. And you look at a guy like Jaylen Brown, he was which again, it's very telling. I'm not surprised that was their responses because I think it's very, that's kind of what their personalities are. JB, I think, has become more, straight up and vocal. Then a little bit more JT, excuse me, is a little bit more laid back and reserved. It's clear that JB's playing with a chip on his shoulder this year, guys. It was apparent. It was clear as day in media day, and I think it's going to be clear as day when we tip off for the first game of the regular season. My question for you guys is, what should next year look like for Jaylen Brown in a productivity standpoint?
I think that he definitely has potential to, have another big season, of course, but I want to see an all-star starter, Jaylen Brown. I think that if we can pair him and JT together, obviously, I think that would be absolutely crazy. But I mean, obviously, it's definitely something that we have to wait for. But I think that he definitely can make a push because, coming off that USA snub, it's going to be really interesting to see if he, comes back firing and plays tough for that. So,
Oh yeah. I mean, Jaylen Brown is for sure going to be out for blood this season. He said that he is going to be out for blood for the season. So I'm very excited to see what he does. Production wise, though, does he have to do a whole lot more than he did last year? I'm not
No,
really
not at
sure.
all. Not at all.
So would I like to see, more scoring? Maybe he averages like 27 a game somewhere. Maybe he averages close to 30 a game. Now we'll have to see if that actually happens with the fact that Tatum and everybody else is there. But if you are Jaylen Brown has only gotten better every single year that he's been in the NBA. So if he was to take another leap, it wouldn't shock me. Like I said, every year he's done something better. And I can't believe it. This is year 9. Dude, he's the longest tenured Celtic. Year 9. And he's like what, 28?
Yeah.
Like, geez, that's absolutely insane. I can't even imagine that. It's insane.
The fact that it's almost been a decade in the league with Brown and Tatum is wild to me.
Yeah, Tatum's year 8.
Year 8. But it's like the crazy thing about it is, that's when you start your prime. Like they're entering, which is such a weird thought because, in football, it's like, year 2, it's like, all right, boom, prime, go now. In basketball, it takes such a long time. Where it's like, all right, year 9, you're still like, if you were to ask a guy like Paul George, he would do anything to go back into year 9, right? That's like that's your prime, that's your youth, and it's just crazy because it's like these guys they're vets, right? They got a ring, they got gold medals, they got MVP awards, they're vets. You walk into the locker room, it's like what they say, you listen, and that's a weird. I feel like every time you think of the vets, obviously Drew Holiday and Al Horford, but it's like now like Tatum and Brown, they're vets now. They're no longer the young guns in the locker room.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they were saying that Brad Stevens said something earlier about how like the Celtics lead the team in vets or something like that because of Drew Holiday and Al Horford. But like you're right. It's crazy to think about. Like, we've seen them since they were 19 and 20 years old, going to the Eastern Conference Finals and one game away from the NBA Finals to now being champions, And these guys aren't only leaders on the court, they're leaders off the court. These people, Tatum as a kid, he has the shoe line. He's on Sports Illustrated, 2K, like you said, gold medal, everything like that. And Jaylen Brown, he's an activist. He has all of his philanthropy and stuff that he's doing with his foundations and, his rap career now. Like these guys have grown. These guys have grown so much all in front of our eyes, and it's been amazing to see. And now we're kind of seeing the peak of them as people, and it's really awesome to see and follow as that we have throughout their entire careers.
And I hate to get so off track here, but I do want to piggyback off that. I think that's for Celtics fans, especially Celtics fans in our age group, that was what was so special about this championship was it felt like, at least for me, and I bet you guys can attest to this, it kind of felt like you grew up with Tatum and Brown, where here they are getting drafted and there's these young 18-year-old, 19-year-olds, and here I am like a 12-year-old watching them get drafted, or 13. And it just feels like as you see them grow up in the league, you're growing up so it was pretty cool. Crazy thought that they're in year 9 and 8. Hopefully, they can get another one done. But I guess going back to my Jaylen Brown point, for me, what it looks like, I'd say all defensive first team is what I want to see out of JB, because that man took the defensive captain to a whole nother level last year with the departure of Smart. And I think obviously if he doesn't do it, it's not a failure of a year, no doubt. But I think that's something JB should push himself to. I also do agree, all-star starter. I'd like to kind of see him now in the Eastern Conference be that number one guard, right? Where it's like, there's no better, or maybe he's a forward next year, and Tatum's slotted at the power forward. We'll see, obviously, with Embiid and Giannis, it's always tough. But, that's, I like that too. So it'll be exciting to see. What's also exciting to see, guys, Joe Mazzulla, Crazy Joe, he's back and he's better than ever, guys. He's dropping some of the hardest quotes that we were seeing. It's like every day you wake up and you're like, what Joe Mazzulla quote am I going to see? This one, I had to talk about it. The expectation is to win every year. I love that quote. He understands the assignment, Joe. I love it. Guys, with Joe Mazzulla, what does he need to do this upcoming year, in order to help guide these Celtics to banner 19?
Joe Mazzulla is an intense guy, right? And I think his intensity always just fires up this team and fires us up as fans as well, right? And he also said something crazy that got us all going too. He's like, I hope it's right on our forehead. I hope to see the red dot. You know what I mean? Then that just means that he needs the team to see the red dot so they can feel how close they are between winning and losing. And just also, part of it is he's trying to tap into a side of his players that he didn't even know existed. And so he just wants them to see the game in a different way and be capable of playing in different styles. And so I think he can get them fired up enough to repeat and just, keep repeating for years to come. So I don't think we've seen the last of our championship run. I think it's going to keep going on for a long time.
Yeah. And I mean, the main thing with not only Joe Mazzulla, but everybody as a whole is just complacency and not to get complacent with winning one championship. And it obviously doesn't feel like that they're very complacent with their championship, as it feels like their main motivation is to go back and win more. So that's pretty much going to be the main thing. Keep them focused. The regular season doesn't mean a whole lot to Celtics fans and Celtics players as a whole anymore. Granted, it never really has, but it means even less now. So you have to be ready for the postseason, and that's what Joe Mazzulla needs to do, is just keep them focused.
I would say that the regular season was for the Celtics, was looked at under such a microscope, for myself included. I'm guilty of it, looking back at it. It was such a pressure cooker environment ever since they got to their Eastern Conference Finals when they were rookies. Every year was like, I guess really their second one is when it started, because the first one, it followed. The second year was just so weird with that 2019 year. But as soon as they did it after the year Kyrie left, it was like, oh God, like here they are. They're like, can they get this done? And then they go and they lose the finals. And it's just like, oh my God, every loss, whether it's Twitter, whether it's ESPN, whether it's here or there, right? So their own Celtics, you post on Celtics Talk Weekly, we post, and after a loss, and comments are flooded, right? Post-game shows, comments are like, overreactions here and there. And it's just like, when you look back at it, you're thinking to yourself like, oh my God, like, yes, the regular season's important. Yes, it matters. But it's like, it was unfair to Joe Mazzulla, to Jason Tatum, to Jaylen Brown, to the whole Celtics to look at their season in such a vacuum and a pressure cooker. It's like we looked at it under a telescope, it felt like.
Microscope, really, honestly. Yeah. Everything was critical. It was insane. Like, granted, not every Celtics fan is like us, where we are covering every game, we're watching every game, but like, there were times, especially years, where at least until last year, I think, where it was stressful. You had no idea what was going on. The long stretches of either losing or winning were overreacted to in either way. So, like you say, I'm not saying the regular season doesn't matter, but at the same time, it doesn't matter the same way that it used to. Like, it's not going to be looked at under a microscope. It's going to be more just getting everybody acclimated, just getting ready for the playoffs at this point. And I mean, I guess that's what it normally should be in general, but we're
It was
Celtics fans.
impossible.
We're gonna overreact. That's just the way it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a new year, a new feeling. And in terms of what Joe Mazzulla needs to do, I would say it's just continue to to try things out. Would be my answer, was because the formula's out there on the Celtics, right? Everyone saw it, how dominant they were, and you're seeing teams try to adapt to that, right? You got Oklahoma City, who's kind of got the same blueprints as us. They're just young. You got Philly, who went out and got Paul George, who's a defensive wing, offensive talent, two-way. And then you got the Knicks, go out. They get Mikal Bridges, who's the same thing, offensive two-way, talented scorer, which, again, you don't know how those are going to work out. But it's like, all right, teams are trying to, catch up to us, whether or not I personally think they aren't caught up to us yet. But, when you're Joe Mazzulla, it's like, all right, what else can I add to this bag? What else can I put in and implement that's new and teams aren't ready for? Because, as talented as this team is, again, teams have seen this Celtics team for a year. They have a year full of footage. I don't know why I just blanked there. That they can use on us. So, I think Joe Mazzulla just needs to adapt very well this year and try things out. Again, like piggybacking off what, Ian and I were just talking about, not everything's looked at under a microscope anymore. You can try things. You can get experimental. You can, like JB said, you can, for a night against Detroit or Washington, kind of try to get Peyton Pritchard going and play through Hauser and, you try things out. And if you lose, it's not the end of the world. And I think that dynamic is very important for the Celtics to understand and for Celtics fans to understand.
Definitely. I'm excited for the season. That's all I care about. I'm ready for the season to start already. Just need Celtics basketball back.
Now,
I think we're going to be even better than we were last year. I mean, even though with the injury aspect of it, I think it's just, we've developed this group for, a whole season last year. Obviously, we won a championship together. I think when, you have that chemistry
right,
and you play together, you do even better the following season. We've seen that from some teams, but obviously, it depends on the circumstances with injuries. But I think that this team can go the distance every like the next couple of years to come. So I'm excited to see what they can do this year.
Is that a crazy thing to say? Do you think, like, that this Celtics team could potentially just be another level better than they were last year?
No, because they're playing a whole nother year together. Like, last year we didn't know what we were gonna have with Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis all together. And obviously, Kristaps isn't going to be there for the beginning, but it's another year where Drew Holiday is in the mix. And, Al Horford's going to be another year. It's going to be another year of Tatum and Brown development and Derek White and, all the bench guys who have been there together for pretty much the last few years or so. Like Hauser, Pritchard, Cornette, all these guys have played together for at least like 3 or 4 years now. So honestly, it's just more continuity, more getting used to each other. And it wouldn't shock me if the Celtics are just as good or even better than they were last year. It really wouldn't.
That's a scary thought. They won 64 games last year, walked their way to the NBA Finals, and what could have
74-8's coming, I'm telling you.
74-8?
74-8's coming. No.
It's
imagine.
That's the scary thing about this team is that, like, and I think when you kind of go around social media sphere of the basketball world, I think everyone doesn't want to accept it. But I think the truth is, with the Boston Celtics, is you are now stuck for about 3 more years of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just getting better every year before they, eventually like flatline. And then, eventually, towards the end of your career, you go down. But like, they are still going up and they are not going to plateau yet. And that's a scary thought because, they were dominant last year. And to think that they could be even better this year, which is, I agree with you, Ian, and Brendon. I absolutely agree with both of you. Like, that's not crazy. It's not crazy to think that. I mean, all the chips kind of play in that favor. So it'll be interesting. And you talk about getting better. There's somebody here that Brad Stevens brought in. He talked a little bit about him that could contribute potentially to the Celtics getting better. And that man is Lonnie Walker. Brad Stevens quoted today saying he's very excited to be here. Guys, if Lonnie Walker makes the roster, what type of role do you guys see him playing on the Celtics team?
I mean, he'll be a reserve guy, I think. Not because he's not talented enough to be in the rotation, but it kind of just feels like he'll end up being a guy like Svi Mykhailiuk was last year, where he'll come in not necessarily for garbage time, but he'll be there to fill a role when a player's out, or he will come in a blowout or so. But I think if Lonnie Walker is good or even better than we think, he could potentially get more minutes. He could be, the third guard coming off the bench if Drew Holiday and Derek White are both needing to come out. Like, if he is that good, then the Celtics could use him a lot more. But I don't know. I feel like with Peyton Pritchard, with Jaden Springer, and with a guy like Sam Hauser, there's not really a whole lot of minutes for him, even if he makes the team. So I think I'm not going to say he's a reserve guy because that kind of sounds disrespectful, but he's just not going to have the biggest role on this team, I don't think. But that's just my opinion.
It's good to have a wing player too to help out our team. Definitely, he's not so much a veteran, but has the experience to be having that role too. And I think that he's been putting he was one of the first people to even be at the training facility, practicing, and so I think that he's trying his best to just find his role for this team and just see how he can contribute and for our chance to maybe possibly repeat. So
it's the best situation for a player of the stature of Lonnie Walker to be in. Hear me out, right? Obviously, he's not signed for the year yet. He's on that E10, Exhibit 10 contract. However, if he is brought in, guys, this is a player that is very offensive talented, right? Very gifted. If he does carve out a role, which, again, I'm going to stand on this. He is the most talented player the Celtics have coming off their bench, right? There is no doubt. However, I think the question mark, kind of like what you said, Ian, it's, what role are you going to put him in, right? You don't really want to mix things up too much. So you don't want to send Pritchard to the bench. You gotta find a way to get him in and filter him in naturally and normally. So you kind of let everyone else that has been here kind of, get the runs. But I will say this, you look at Lonnie Walker. He's a player that's kind of been unproven. He's had some big time moments, right? That game in the playoffs with the Lakers, he went off. He had a very successful year last year with the Brooklyn Nets with the time he was given. You're going to come here. If you can contribute offensively and score points, you're going to enter next year in the Boston Celtics. If they back-to-back and they win that championship, teams are going to throw a bag at Lonnie Walker because that's what happens. You win a ring, you contribute a little bit, and you get paid. You saw it with Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown got a bag thrown at him because he was able to contribute within a role on a championship team. So
Svi Mykhailiuk got a bag. Even it was
I was going to say
Svi
Mykhailiuk for Utah. Yeah, that was a big one. Yeah.
And he hardly
Svi Mykhailiuk got $15 million for 4 years for playing like maybe 20 games with the Celtics.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think that, though.
Championships pay. Like, literally, you win a ring, and you are now, that experience of winning a ring, right? You got a player on your roster that's won a ring. He's seen it with his eyes, and that type of stuff is what gets you paid. And when you have a player that, like Lonnie Walker, you've seen him, right? He's been trying to prove himself. He's very young. He's very gifted. He's very talented. You give him on that 1 year contract, that prove it contract, and you got a good team, he's going to ball out. And I'm very excited for Lonnie Walker. I really do think that, you could see him contribute in some big time, key moments for the Celtics this year. So, with that, it's an exciting time for the Celtics. We're getting back into the flow of things, guys, with the media day. Practice and training camp starts this week. The first preseason game, I could be wrong here. October 8th is their first.
October 4th.
4th. Damn. 4th.
They're playing in Abu Dhabi.
Friday. Next Friday. Wow, that's crazy.
Who's that? Is that again? Who's that against?
That's against the Nuggets in Abu Dhabi.
Okay, that's.
I think it's 2 games actually, back to back, right?
Is it?
Yeah, the 4th and the 6th. They're playing in Abu Dhabi.
Okay, so
that'll be crazy.
Yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be interesting to see, what both teams do. Again, we're gonna have you guys covered weekly here on the podcast, but the post game shows are gonna be making a return this year, and we're very excited to get started with that, guys. How about 4 in a row for the CTW crew? That is something worth clapping about because we're killing it here. We're very excited, guys. Again, before I end the show and the podcast, I do want to say if you're not already following us on our social media, everyone's links are in the description down below, along with our main page over at Celtics Talk Week. We're pumping out content over there daily. Guys, I'm Rob, and the next two men next to me are my man Ian Angelo and the newcomer Brendon Cox. Guys, again, thank you so much for listening or watching. And until next time, you guys know the drill. Go Celtics.